All right, Baz, let's rock and roll. I'd like to start from the very, very start. Tell us a little bit about your motivation before we walked into a boxing gym.
Before I walked into a boxing gym, um, well, to be honest with you, what motivated me, I guess, was being brought up in the commission flats. You know, I was migrated from England when I was 2. I was a 10-pound pom. We lived in Hamilton briefly. Then we moved to Glenbervie, which was where I became a Bomber supporter. And then we moved to Williamstown, but my real early memories are from Williamstown. And as a kid growing up, you know, I always had ambition, and my dad was a motivating factor because as a man who was just, when he first came to Australia, was a postman. He went back to university for 3 years and got a degree and got a great job from then on. So Dad was always a motivating person in my life. But to be honest with you, being brought up in the commission flats, my dad had about 20 amateur fights. He taught my brother and I how to defend ourselves and how to fight, and we got on a lot of scraps. So, and you know, I don't think I ever lost one of them, and so I knew I could fight. And then when the great Lionel Rose, when I was 13 in 1968, when he won the world title in Tokyo, that was me. I just thought, you know, I want to be like him, and him and Johnny Famechon were my 2 idols, and I didn't ever get to spar with Johnny Famechon, but when I was 18, 19, I got to start sparring with the great Lionel Rose, and I just, right from walking into the gym as an amateur, after the first night I trained there, and I fought within, I think I trained 2 weeks and had my first fight. I thought, this is me. I just fell in love with it. I was, you know, extremely nervous and that, but I had this goal and dream right from a young age, because of the inspiration that Lionel Rose had given me, that one day I would hear the man say, and 15 3-minute rounds for the championship of the world. And that became my goal and my dream. School, I got university entrance, and if I had have been given economics, which is what I wanted to do, I passed year 12, but they offered me psychology, would you believe? So I deferred that for a year and turned professional on TV ringside. So I always had this dream of also, you know, doing a degree in something, and psychology probably would have been good, but because you learn, I think you get a psychological degree when you've been a boxer for so many years. But yeah, so I turned professional on TV ringside at 18 and never looked back.
Absolutely. And what age did you kind of really start to believe that you could be a world champion? You thought, you know what, I might have a shot here.
To be honest with you, it became a bit of an obsession with me even before I'd walked into the boxing gym as a kid, because we used to have gloves in the commission flats and punch on with our mates, and I'd punch on with my older brother who used to belt me early doors because he was much bigger. I had it from a very early age, and when I walked into that boxing gym and the first night I sparred and the trainer David Elliott said, "You can fight, do you want to fight?" And I said yes. That from then on, it was just my one single goal to hear that man say in 15 3-minute rounds for the world title. And I always made a commitment to myself that I would never retire until I at least fought for the world title.
Absolutely. And you touched on psychology, and you were known throughout your career to have a really, really solid mindset. How has boxing shaped your character as a person?
I think boxing's been, you know, I mean, if I look at my life, and I'm blessed, to be honest. You know, I've travelled the world, I've fought all over the world. I've, you know, fought in most continents, fought in Indonesia 5 times, the Philippines, South America, the United States, England, Wales, you know, fought all over the world, seen the world, got to meet so many great people. And boxing has really, and you know, listening to Billy Dibb before, boxing, you meet so many great people, and you know, and so many of the boxers are great people, and I am still in contact with some of the guys that I fought in my 60 professional fights, even a couple that beat me. You'd think I wouldn't speak to them, but I do. So I think, yeah, you know, boxing has just been such a motivating factor and such an incredible part of my whole life, and you know, love it, and it's a sport that we unfortunately had a few, you'll always get deaths in sport, but we had a few deaths during a period many years ago, and boxing copped a lot of really unfair publicity, and I think that's changed to a certain extent now, and I think with what's happening in Aussie rules football, the concurrence of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, in football is, I think, a lot more prominent in footballers, AFL footballers and probably rugby league players, but especially AFL players, because a lot of them have severe concussions, and I won't mention the guy's name, but he had over 50 concussions and obviously ended up with CTE. Can you imagine a boxer having 50 concussions? You know, it doesn't happen like that, you know. So I think boxing has copped a bit of unfair criticism that it's a brutal, well, it is a brutal sport, but it's not as dangerous as many other sports, or no more dangerous.
And for someone thinking about getting into boxing, whether it's for fighting or whether it's for fitness, how can boxing help change someone's life?
I think because you learn to believe in yourself, you meet so many great motivating people in a gym like this Hit Fit gym. You know, motivational for so many of these young people to come in here and to meet your father in particular, and you know, and yourself, and what you know yous have achieved. But you know, walking into a boxing gym, it's always like a community. It's not what people expect. And it does, you become part of a community, and it's great for people's mental health as well as their physical health.
Yeah, absolutely, Baz. And it's stereotypical for people to think boxing is an angry sport or an angry form of exercise, or to box, you've got to be a bit mad up in the head. But obviously, you know, some of the greatest boxers are the calmest people and the most disciplined people.
Exactly.
How do you think the discipline learnt through boxing can help people in other areas of life?
I think incredibly, because you know, if you can achieve something in boxing, you know, it is a real achievement to get up there and fight another person one-on-one, just you and him, and win, lose or draw. It's still a great buzz. Even there's times, you know, you come out on the wrong end of a fight and you lose, but you still feel good in yourself because you know you've fought well, and you know. So I think, you know, just being involved in a gym or having actual bouts, I think it helps people in so many different ways to believe in themselves, that they can do things and make other challenges.
And you touched on it before in terms of the relationships that you build through boxing, and of, like you said, you're a part of a community. How important do you think it is for any person to be surrounded by like-minded people and supportive people?
I think it's incredibly important because, you know, if you say you're a girl or a boy, or you know, young man or whatever, and you know you haven't got a lot of friends around you, and you're sitting at home, and maybe you're drinking, or maybe you're using drugs and going down the wrong track, you need to break that model. And you know, you walk into a boxing gym and you find that it's not full of anger, it's full of camaraderie, and people help each other and show empathy to each other, and I think that's incredibly important. And you know, that's one thing about boxing gyms, and that's what happens, because it's like a family.
Yeah, 100%. And looking back on your career, Baz, was there any kind of person or people in particular that you think, you know what, if it wasn't for them, I don't know if I would have got to where I've gotten to?
Well, the first guy I ever trained with, well, my dad basically taught me the basics, but David Elliott, I had my first 10 fights with him, and I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was a motivational factor in my life because he got me into boxing and I got the bug. And he was happy for me to go to another trainer, which was Alan Meeker in Oak Park, and I trained under Alan Meeker and till I fought for the British Commonwealth title the first time against Billy Moella, a 15-round fight which I lost on points, and we parted company after that, but there wasn't really bad blood. But he is a man that I am indebted to for putting the basis to my style, because he was an old tent fighter, and he really taught me how to be, you know, because I'm short and nuggety, he really taught me how to be the in-fighter that I became, a body puncher. So yeah, I'm indebted to him. And look, so many people that I work with around the world, you know, and some famous names too. I mean, they always have, boxing people will look at you training, and you know, they will offer you advice. You know, it's a bit of an open. It's not like people think, where you think they'd be, you know, all to themselves and I don't want to speak to you. They're far more open and helpful, and I think it's a wonderful thing about boxing. You know.
Absolutely, Baz. And looking back at your career, what was one of the highest moments? And can you kind of describe what you felt in that moment?
Well, obviously, and I knew you were going to ask me this one, obviously the pinnacle of my career was to win the world title off your father, which was unfortunate that we had to fight each other, because when he was 12 and I was 22, I picked him as a future world champion, and 8 years later we had to fight each other. But other than that, some of the victories I had against, Al Carter was one of my greatest victories. And, as I said, I watched Lionel Rose, I watched Johnny Famechon, and those two guys just motivated me in so many different respects. And I got to spend a lot of time with both of them. They're both no longer with us, but both great men. But yeah, probably the biggest moment. I won the Commonwealth title twice. They were both great moments in my career, but nothing beats stepping in the ring. And my dream was culminated the night that I stepped in the ring at Festival Hall, July the 12th, 1985. And the man had said, in 15 3-minute rounds for the IBF Super Featherweight Championship of the world. And, that was basically the pinnacle. And then to go through 15 rounds of brutal war with your dad, punch the living shit out of each other, and we're still best mates now.
Yeah.
Great
What
stuff.
was that feeling like, Baz, when you heard your name?
It took me weeks to come down, to be honest. It was, I was on cloud 9, and everywhere you went. And to be honest with you, a lot of people were angry at me for beating, a 20-year-old superstar like your dad. A lot of people weren't happy with me, but lots of people were. And wherever I went, I was sort of feted like, a hero. And it was a great buzz, to be honest. One of the pinnacles of my life.
Fantastic, Baz. And for someone that is at home and is thinking about doing boxing but is scared or feel fearful for whatever reason, what advice would you give them?
Just go to a gym and start, because there's nothing to be scared about, because everyone's treated equally. And, providing you go to a gym with competent coaches like, what you run here, people that know the game, they will just walk out after even their first session feeling like, wow, that was great, I'm going back. And once they get hooked, they'll do it forever. And it just helps. I really honestly believe it helps so many people. It's the greatest. No, there's no fitter people in the world than professional fighters or even amateur fighters that fight at top level. I don't think there's any other sport in the world that elevates your fitness to the level of boxing. I could be wrong, but it's certainly up there. And it's a great buzz as well. It relieves aggression. If you've got anger in yourself, even punching the bag takes that out of you. And certainly sparring can help as well. But you're not trying to kill anyone. And I mean, there are times, your father used to try and kill me regularly. We had many wars, and great camaraderie between the two of us,
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Baz. Now we're going to go over to our rapid fire questions. So I've got 4 questions for you. You can take your time, you don't have to answer them too quickly. All right, first and foremost, and I think I might know the answer to this one, what's your favourite punch?
Probably the left hook to the body.
Left hook to the body. Now, even though I said rapid fire, let's just hold that for a second. Where did you learn the left rip to the body, and how did that punch, I guess, play a part in your career?
Probably Alan Meeker, as I said, who was an old tent fighter, who was my second trainer, who lived in Oak Park. He was the one who, being relatively short and nuggety, he taught me how to, roll and rip and hook, and the defence that I had to help me with that too, which I trained with some of the, best trainers in the world later on as well. But Alan Meeker put the basis to my style, and he taught me how to, really land that left hook. And I developed more with myself over the years. I sort of probably perhaps got even better and better by certain things I learned from different trainers, but Alan Meeker certainly put the basis to it.
Fantastic, that's awesome to know. And what's your favourite combination, Baz? Do you have any kind of set of punches you like to put together?
Oh, probably you roll under, left rip, left hook, right hand jab, for bang, 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 left rip, left hook, right hand jab. But you always finish with the jab. The jab's probably the most important punch there is, because the jab can win you a fight alone. You can win a fight with the jab, nothing else.
Yeah. And if there's anyone you could have fought in your career, who would have you liked to fight?
It's an easy one. Boom Boom Mancini for the WBC World Lightweight title. I think I got as high as number 3. I went to the great Tony Barber, sale of the century. He took me to Los Angeles, and we went and watched, I think his name was Gonzalo Montalano, who was the top contender. We watched him train, and I just said, look, I can beat this bloke for sure. And, yeah, it's funny because as we walked out, I walked into Rocky Mattioli, who was making a comeback in Los Angeles, and I'd lived with him in Italy for about 6 months, and Tony was, and we were the only. Tony was a bit nervous because we were probably the only white guys in the gym, including Rocky. But we stayed to watch Rocky spar, and he knocked out a Mexican in one round. He got out of the ring. He was extremely upset. And, I just defended the Commonwealth title against Willie Tariqa at Dallas Brooks Hall a couple of weeks earlier. But I'd been, having a few beverages and with Tony and that. And Tony was a great guy. And I just said to Rocky, you need sparring? And he said, yes. I said, I'll come in tomorrow and spar you. And the look on Tony's face, anyway, the next day he was absolutely shitting himself. He's trying to put my mouth guard in upside down. And anyway, I did 6 rounds with Rocky, who was world light middleweight champion. And we had sparred a lot in Italy and in Melbourne. And we got a standing ovation. And I remember getting out of the ring in the Olympic gym in Los Angeles, and I got these people coming up to me saying, guys, who are you, man? Who are you? You need a manager? You need a manager? So yeah, that was a great memory.
Absolutely, 100%. And if you could pick any 2 fighters, Baz, from any era to fight each other, who would you pick and who do you think will win?
Probably, it's one of the greatest questions, asked to most fighters, but because of the inspiration, my 2 inspirations were Lionel Rose and Johnny Famechon, 2 great champions who both won world titles in incredibly tough circumstances. Lionel to go to Tokyo in 1968 and beat the great fighting Harada, who I think at that stage had lost 1 decision to Ida Jofra and was world champion again, and also the great Johnny Famechon, who beat what's his name? Jose Legre. He beat Jose Legre in London to win the world featherweight title. 2 brilliant fighters. They sparred each other quite regularly, and there was a lot of controversy, but it would have been wonderful to see them fight. I think it would have been an incredible fight, and I think Lionel would have won. Yep. I think Lionel would have won, but it could have gone either way because they were both great fighters.
Absolutely. Baz, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Fantastic.